already familiar with the concept of a HyperDoc, so this video may simply serve as a review for many of you who already use them in your classrooms. But we briefly want to go through the process of creating these documents and discuss how to make them more user-friendly and aesthetically pleasing for both you and your students. Today we're going to cover 1. How to create a well-organized student-friendly HyperDoc. 2. How to change the format, presentation, or layout for your HyperDocs. And 3. How to avoid common mistakes and errors. First, you need to determine what you want your students to accomplish. A HyperDoc should be an interactive instructional guide, so there should be multiple tasks included. It's not simply a worksheet. Next, considering many of us will be working remotely next year, at least for a little while, provide a clear introduction at the beginning of the page, if needed, to introduce your students to the subject. Then, underneath, provide clear bulleted instructions so your students know exactly what to expect. Once you've conceptualized your design, it's time to start working. So most HyperDocs simply use some form of a table, so let's start with that. Go to Insert, Table. We only will need 2 rows for this, 2 columns, but I'll make more than enough rows because I can just delete them later. Alright, so again, HyperDocs are designed to give students more autonomy in their learning, but you still need to make it abundantly clear what's expected of them. So start with simply writing Step 1 or Task 1 at the very top. Go ahead and center it so they know that it's the title. Underneath it, you just want to provide some kind of directions. Again, the directions are already provided above, but for each of the steps, you want to make sure you reiterate what you want them to do. All right, also, you want to make sure that you bold the fonts so that they know that this is important. Directions. This is an example. All right, so now, obviously, you can't have 2 cells for step 1, so you need to merge the cells. So the way that you merge the cells is you simply highlight the 2 cells, right-click on it, and then go down to Merge Cells. So it will merge the cells to look like that. Okay, and the same thing with directions. You do not need 2 cells for that. Go ahead, right-click, merge cells again. Now, if I have questions that I want my students to answer, okay, I want to make sure that I give them adequate space in this document to write their answers. So in this case, since we only have 2 columns, I'm all set. So I'm going to write my question on the left and have my students answer them in the space to the right, so I don't need to merge anything here. So let's say this is question 1. Okay, this will be question 2. And let's say I want to give my students a little more space over here. All I would need to do is just drag this over, and then now they have more space to type their answers. At this point, I want to make sure that I'm distinguishing between the different cells, and I want to make sure my students know exactly where to put the answers. So the best way for me to distinguish between their answer space and all the spaces that they should not be filling out is to color code it. So all I want to do is click on the cell that I need colored. I'm going to go up over here to these 3 dots where it says more, and there should be the bucket option. Now the colors I don't want anything too jarring like a bright red. So basically this whole first row I want to avoid. So let's say I want a more muted color like light magenta 3. Okay, so that will be step 1. Now the directions, I tend to keep this always the same color. So it tends to be a darker yellow. So anytime my students see that, they know that the directions are there. Now if I want to keep these a different color, I can change that as well. So now these will all be green. So the white spaces are essentially the spaces that my students will be filling in their answers. So again, students are already accustomed to filling the blanks, so leaving it white will indicate that that's where they need to put their response. Now, I want my students to move on to task 2. So all I'm going to do is repeat the same steps as above. I'm going to merge the cells, write step 2, center it, provide directions, merge, and then the next set of questions will be there. So let's say that part of task 2 involves the students watching a video. So here's where I need to add a hyperlink. First, I want to make clear to my students that they're going to have to click on something. So I usually bold and capitalize the letters to the word which I want them to click. So directions would be start by watching the video. Please click here. Okay, so again, I want to make sure that this is bolded and capitalized. Okay, so now at this point, this is where they will need to go for the video. So all I want to do is just highlight the text, right click on it, go to link, and then I will paste a link or search over there. So let's just say, for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to Yahoo. Click on Yahoo, apply, and there it is. So all my students will need to do is just click on that link and it'll take them to wherever they need to go. Now let's say I would prefer to have them click on an image instead. So what I can do instead is image, and then you have some options over here. What I'm going to do is just search the web for simplicity's sake. So I'm going to cat, and this looks like a perfect photo. So all I'm going to do is just go ahead and click on it, and then it should hypothetically pop up. Now that is a gigantic photo. I do not need two of them, so let me delete this one over here. So all I have to do is just make it smaller, and it's already breaking the text. I don't want it to break text. We want to move it over there, that's fine. So instead of clicking this, I'm going to go ahead and X out of that, click on the image, go to link, and same process as before. Go to Yahoo. So please click on the image right over there. So again, you do have some options as to what you need to do. Oof, that was rough. Are you guys okay? I fell asleep just making that video. Well, we have a couple more things to cover, so bear with me. Let's say, for example, that we don't want to create a HyperDoc that looks like this anymore. So again, a lot of times I get a little bit lazy and I just end up using Google Docs to look kind of like this. Now again, as you can see, they're pretty extensive. They have all the directions in there, but again, it's just a Google Doc. Sometimes students get bored by looking at it. So, hey, let's say, for example, I want to change the basic format to make it look something more like this, which is essentially a choice board. So how would I do that? So what I'm going to do right now is kind of quickly take you through the basic steps for how to create something that looks like this. Okay, so the HyperDoc on the left is what I want to emulate. So, okay, it should be a relatively easy thing to do. So the very first thing I notice is that it has a blue background. Okay, so the way you get a blue background is you go to File, you go to Page Setup, and then it goes to Page Color, and then let's just pick a darker blue for this one, something like that. Okay, not exactly the same, but it doesn't matter. All right, the next thing I want to do, okay, I'm gonna disregard these directions at the top, but okay, I want to look at the chart itself, the table, okay, the actual HyperDoc, the content. So first thing I need to do is I need to see how many rows and columns there are. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4 columns. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows. So I'm going to create a table that has 4 columns and 5 rows. So just like we did before, table, go to 4, and then go to 5. We're just going to go ahead and insert that now. Okay, so obviously this does not look like that quite yet. So next thing I'm going to do is I notice that there's a huge box right over here. So obviously I don't have that. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to look at all these, highlight them, right click, merge, and then we have that. So now what I can do is just type Poetry Game Board. And then I can play with the fonts later, but that's essentially the same thing right now. Now, obviously, I'm having a difficult time seeing this because of the color on the inside. So what I'm going to do is, after I center it, because it's driving me a little bit crazy. Okay, I'm just going to go back to the bucket option and then pick a different color. So now it looks like that. Okay, so same thing with over here. These 4 boxes at the top are all the same color. So I'm going to make these all the same color as well. So let's just make it purple. And then these ones each have their own different color, so I can go through and then just simply change the colors for each of them. Okay, I'm obviously not going to do the whole thing for time's sake, but it looks like that. So, okay, these are bigger boxes, so all I'm going to do is just turn them. So 5 spaces each, or maybe 6, and then all I would do is type my text here. And then if I want to link something, I will just capitalize it, highlight, right click, link, and then I would go to ufc.com, something like that. Okay, so you click on that, okay, and then it'll take you to the UFC. All right, so again, it's very simple. Now the next thing I need to do is, okay, I'm noticing that the colors of the border is different than what I have, so it doesn't really look exactly the same. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight the whole table, and I'm going to go over here to, the first thing I'm going to do is go to the border color, okay? And then the border color, I'm just going to make yellow, okay? So it looks like that now. Now, it still looks a little bit different, so what I'm going to do is over here, click on border width, and then I'm just going to make it larger, okay? And it still looks a little bit different because this person has played with the margins, so all I really need to do is just go to the top, oops, click out of this, go to the top, and then change the margins like that. It's not really working right now, it's kind of embarrassing. Well, I can drag it here as well. Okay, so now obviously it's not exactly the same, but the premise is the same. It has a different color background. Okay, you have your cells with a thick border width, and then each of the different cells are a little bit different. Now if I want to distribute the columns so it's more even, I'll just go over here and I'll just click on distribute columns, and then it'll make it a little more presentable like that. Another option you have instead of just creating the HyperDocs through Google Docs is to make it in a Google Slides presentation. Okay, so again, it's just another option for you to kind of like format it differently and give your students something else to look at. So first thing I want to do is go ahead and click on new slide. So my first slide, I always want to provide directions. Again, students need to know exactly what they're doing before they get into it. So I'm going to go ahead and type step 1, and then I would just type in whatever they need to do. And then I would do the same thing with step 2. Yada, 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 yada. All right, so next one, I'm going to go ahead, right click, go to new slide. Now, I have these text boxes here and I don't want them to impede what I'm trying to do. So I'm going to right click, go to apply layout, and I'm just going to click on blank so it doesn't kind of get in the way of what I'm trying to do. So right now it's a blank slide and I don't want that to be like that. So I'm going to go to background, and I can do a couple different things. I can choose an image to be my background, or I can choose a different color. So for the sake of today, let's go ahead and click red. Okay. Now, I obviously don't want to leave it like that. Okay, I want to use this as a border. So the very first thing I'm going to do is click over here, text box, and I'm just going to put in the upper left-hand corner and drag it down. So again, I can't just leave it like this because there's nothing really there. So I'm going to go ahead and make it white. So right now it looks like I have a red border around, which just makes it a little bit cleaner. So first thing I want to do is I want to indicate to my students that this is where step 1 lies. This is where it lives. So I'm going to go ahead, insert a table, and for the first one, I'm just going to have 2 different boxes. Let's say step 1, and then I'm going to have directions. So step 1, again, I always put it as center line, and then I have directions. I'm going to underline that. And what's nice about Google Slides is that you can kind of easily manipulate and drag these things over here. And again, like I said, I like to have my different tables to be different colors. So I'm going to put this one in like yellow, and I'll put this in like my normal yellow that I have for directions. Okay, so directions I want for this assignment, I'm going to say, watch the video on the left, then write your response on the right. Now, if I was doing this, my directions would be a little more pronounced and precise, but you know, for the sake of this tutorial, I'm just trying to get through things. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to insert another table over here. So this is the first thing I'm doing. Okay, I want to make sure it's a little bit smaller than this, and I want to make sure it's obviously a little bit bigger. Okay, so one of the nice things with slides is I can insert a video directly. So if we go to insert video, I have the option of finding something through YouTube. Now I've already typed in Joseph Green Hands, which is the poem we're going to work with today. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this, and then I just click on it and hit select. Now again, when you present it, you can actually just click directly on the play button and it will play. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put in this box over here. Now I want my students to write a response. And again, I want everything to be kind of like the same in terms of uniformity. So I'm going to hit Control C, hit Control V to make a duplicate of that, and I'm going to align it with the right side of this, and I'm going to wait for this to become red as well. So alright, so now I have 2 boxes, and then they're going to watch the video here, they're going to write the response there. And again, if I want to make it a little more visually arresting, I can go ahead and click on the whole thing, and again, like I said, I can change the border, and I can change the widths. So it's going to end up looking something like that, and same thing over here. If I just click on this, oops, excuse me, and then I can change the color of this, and then I can change, oops, what did I do? Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. Alright, I can change the border, and then I can change the width of it as well. Alright, so again, it's going to end up looking something like this, and students can type the responses here, and I would just repeat this step for each of the different tasks that I have for them. One of the first mistakes that people make when they're trying to share a hyperlink from their Google Drive is that they don't make the link shareable. So what you want to do is right click on the document, go to get shareable link, and then it will say restricted. So what you want to do is go ahead and click on it and change it to anyone with this link. Okay, and then you can copy that link, and then you can insert it in the HyperDoc. You also want to make sure that you set the settings to viewer and not editor. If you allow your students to be editors of the document, that means they will be able to edit the original assignment, which is not something that you want to happen. Another mistake that teachers make, and it's not really a mistake, it's more so the students' lack of ability to understand what they're supposed to be doing, is that they don't really make it easy for them to make a copy. So again, in most normal circumstances, most regular human beings would be able to go to File, make a copy, and then they would have, in turn, an editable document. But again, lots of students will click on this, request edit access, and then you basically have to go back and tell them, no, sorry, you need to make a copy. So one way to circumvent this issue is to simply go to the URL. So if you go to the URL, the last 4 letters are edit. So what I want to do to make it easier for them to make a copy is I'm going to take out the word edit, and I'm going to write the word copy, and that is the URL that I want to hyperlink. That's the URL I want to give them. So when I put this in, I go ahead and click on it, and then what it does, it essentially forces them to make a copy. So when I click on make a copy here, it's going to make a copy of the document for them that they will have to submit later. But again, they don't have to go to manually file, make a copy, so forth and so on. Probably the biggest mistake that teachers make is that they're creating HyperDocs that are not very student friendly. So as you can see from this non-example, there are a lot of things that I am expected to do, but at the same time, I don't really know the order in which I'm supposed to complete them. They don't really clearly explicate what is step 1, what is step 2, and more importantly, I don't even know what I'm supposed to be doing for each of these steps unless I click into the document. So again, these things need to be abundantly clear, especially to students. Probably the most egregious error of this example is that the font is in Comic Sans, but that's besides the point. Anyhow, so you need to make sure that they have a clear understanding of what is expected of them, because again, presumably they will be working on these HyperDocs independently, which is why we created them in the first place. We are here. We are at the end. We've made it. So congratulations for sticking through this. I'm sorry I couldn't make it more exciting, but there's only so much I can do for an instructional tutorial. So yeah, if you made it through the end, I commend you, and if you didn't, well, you're not here anyway. So yes, I hope you were able to take away something that you can bring back to your classrooms. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me or Matt, and we will talk to you guys soon. Thank you again.